Hey guys, Sephiroth here, and welcome to the ultimate guide for Fire Fists. Now I want to start off by saying that this is not a guide about bear, gorilla or anything like that. We're not going to explain all the cards, we're just going to explain the ones that matter and the combos used in each of the variants of the Fire Fist archetype. I'll put in links to the specific times that I talk about each variant so that you guys can quickly go to the one that you experience. The three variants are 3-axis, 4-axis and the 4 Synchro Axis. On top of all of this, deck lists will be available depending on the positive response that I get on this particular video. Likes, comments, subscribes all help, so if you guys want deck profiles, that's what you gotta do. So let's start with 4-axis. This particular variation actually relies all on XYZing. There is basic, very basic synchro support, but we'll get into that on this particular variation. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to start with possibly Tenki or Tensu. You want a Tensu on the field as much as possible, especially if you're in the TCG. If you're in the TCG, Tensu is your bread and butter in this deck. You need to be able to summon twice in a turn to be able to XYZ, or you'll be using Rabbit, in which case you'll be using Gene Warped Werewolf in order to get those pluses. Now, the basics of the OCG variation is that you'll be using Wolfberg. Wolfberg, the Enthusiastic Beastman Wolfberg, will be an instant XYZ card. As soon as that's on the field, you'll be able to normal summon the Wolfberg. Wolfberg enables you to special summon a level 4 Beast Warrior type fire attribute monster from your graveyard. Very specific. And if you've got another Tensu on the field, you'll be able to normal summon another Fire Fist monster if it's on your hand. In which case, you can keep Enthusiastic Beastman Wolfberg and be able to use his effect the following turn, which is always a good thing. Now, what you would normally do is you would use Wolfberg, overlay into Tiger King. Tiger King will be at 3. Tiger King will give you another Tensu, Tenki, Trap, Tenkin, Tensin, whatever it is, and whatever you want, it will give you it. Instantly set to the field, instantly as you need it. Now, the other way to do this is this allows actual Shockmaster plays very easily if you have a Tensu on the field. If you have a Tensu on the field, you use Wolfberg, bring him back, and then you normal summon another Fire Fist, overlay 3, and then you've got a Shockmaster. Very easy first turn. All you need is a card in the grave, which can be done through the new spell card, Fire Formation Yoko. Now, the thing to remember in this deck is its weakness is it's reliant on XYZing. This has no synchro support, so you'll be using a lot of bears and gorillas to keep things away from stopping your XYZ ability. Say your opponent uses Flying C. Flying C will lock down your ability to XYZ, and you cannot have that. You must be able to XYZ. Now, this is why another variation is being run. The variation of the 4-axis is that it runs very basic 3 support. We're talking 1 leopard, 1 chicken and 1 spirit. Now, spirit will be able to allow you to use that Flying C in order to synchro into Horse Prince. This is always a good thing, and we'll get back to this later because spirit's effect will be used in the 3-axis explanation. Now we'll talk about useless cards. You don't want to run Snake at all. We're not running Snake in this deck, it will not work, it is a minus. Whatever way you look at it, it's a minus. So we do not run Snake. We do run Dragon, however. Dragon is an instant plus. As soon as you activate, say, Tenki or Tensu, you will set a trap card, one of the Fire Formation trap cards, and that is always a plus. If you can thin out your deck while you're gaining a card to the field, always a good thing. On top of that, if you can create a way to get a Fire Fist into the grave, you'll be able to use Dragon's effect, get rid of 2 of your spell cards, which could possibly be 2 Tenkis, which is always a good thing. Bring out Fire Fist, overlay into Cardinal Commander, which I understand is also coming to the TCG, so you guys will be able to use that. And then you'll bring back those 2 Tenkis that you put into the grave with Dragon's effect, put them back into the deck, and then shuffle 2 cards from your opponent's field or graveyard into his deck if they're face up. Obviously graveyard cards are face up. Now, What you have to remember is that we're very low on attack power. Our attack power comes from the Fire Formation cards. So it comes with basic rules in which you would rely on your spells and traps in order to gain more attack, which is easily done. Your opponent will not want to attack you because he knows Tensen and Tenkan are all about gaining you attack, and you can activate these on your main phase 1 no matter what happens. If someone transitions to the battle phase, if you want to activate Tenkan to make your opponent make your card immune to card effects, but instead it was just simply a ploy to get your attack up 300, then it is entirely doable for you to do that on the main phase transition. You have to agree on his main phase to leave that main phase. If he wants to go into his battle phase, he has to get an OK from you to leave the main phase. As said before, this deck suffers from two things: the inability to XYZ. If you're unable to XYZ, you're in trouble. However, Bear compensates for that, in which case you can destroy the Flying Sea, because it doesn't say that it has to be on your opponent's side of the field to destroy a monster. You just have to destroy a monster on the field. Now, there is certain cards that will be supported by this archetype, and we'll get into those on the Synchro variant of this. But for now, that is all you really need to know for the XYZ variant. Next up we have 3 Axis. The 3 Axis actually serves as a way to synchro summon very easily, as well as being able to run things like Eradicate or Epidemic Virus, but we'll get into that. Now, what you'll start out with is you'll start out with the 3 main level 3s. You'll start out with Chicken, Spirit and Leopard, and all of them will be at 3. Also, you'll have either 1 or 2 of Bear and Gorilla. You'll run those at 1 or 2, and then on top of that you could also run Wolfberg, but this is not advisable if you want to run a pure variant of the 3 Axis. The 3 Axis, instead of running Wolfberg, will actually run Rekindling. Rekindling will summon back Leopard and Spirit, and then you'll be able to synchro summon a second time. When using Spirit and Rekindling, it's always a good idea to only special summon Horse Prince last in the turn. The condition of Horse Prince is that he will not let you special summon a level 5 or higher for the rest of the turn. On top of synchro summoning, you'll also be able to use Lion Emperor, which is the rank 3 XYZ. This will allow you to add Spirit back to the hand and repeat the loop every single turn. The main thing about this is you'll use Sirius, the Synchro 6 Dark type, 2400 attack. However, with Tenki, he becomes 2500, or Tensu, or whatever. You'll be able to use him to be able to use Eradicate or Epidemic Virus. This in itself allows you to fight spellbooks off if you can get lucky enough to get the first turn and get him out easily with the virus on the field. Now, I also feel it's necessary to mention this. For the 3 Axis, there is a new card coming out. It's called Fire Fist Coyote. Fire Fist Coyote is a level 5, and he special summons himself from the hand by having no monsters on your field, as well as having a Fire Formation spell or trap card on the field at the time. Now, if you control any of the Fire Formation spell or trap cards, you'll be able to special summon him, in which case you'll be able to normal summon Spirit, and then you'll be able to special summon Leopard. Leopard will not have his effect negated. So what instead you'll do is, with the 5 and the 3, you'll make Kirin, which is the level 8 Synchro. This allows you to, with the 2000 attack and 2800 defense, he also has the effect that he'll set a Fire Formation spell trap card the moment he's synchro summoned. On top of that, he also lowers the attack of all of your opponent's monsters by 100 for every face-up Fire Formation spell or trap card on the field, which can lead to minus 500 attack for your opponent's monsters, which is good enough to keep him on the field at any time. Now, there's a lot of limitations with this deck. On top of not being able to synchro summon a level 5 or higher a monster after you've summoned Horse Prince, you will not be able to attack if you used Brotherhood of the Fire Fist Spirit effect. You'll not be able to attack with any other monster aside from Beast Warrior type monsters. So XYZing into his end mains is not going to work. You will not be able to do anything except for defensively protect yourself for that turn. You will not be able to attack and face plant yourself into someone. The advantages of this deck is it constantly produces pluses on monsters. You will always find that there will be a Fire Fist in your hand. Whether it's from Chicken or Lion Emperor, there will always be a Fire Fist in your hand. The problem with it is it specialises in low attackers. We're talking Fire Fist Spirit and Fire Fist Leopard. If you get a Fire Fist Spirit effect failored or breakthrough skilled, you're in trouble. You will need Tensu in order to be able to normal summon something of level 3 and then synchro summon into something else. This is very problematic for you if your opponent is running a lot of anti-meta, and it doesn't do well against anti-meta, this deck. The other thing is that it also has that it can't adapt to situations, such as if there is an Ophion on the field, you will need a bear to take it out, and that is mostly your only hope as a bear, unless you XYZ summon into Lion Emperor, which will not give you any spells or traps to the field that turn. You will not find any help in XYZing for Lion Emperor. The only thing it will do will postpone it until you get your next draw. And that's pretty much it for the 3 axis. Next up we're onto the 4 Synchro Axis. This is different from all of the other ones. This deck makes use of special cards like Onslaught of the Fire Kings, as well as Fire King's Fire Cycle or Fire King's Fire Ring, whatever it's called. It uses a lot of Fire King's cards because it uses Fire Fist Deer and Fire Fist Boar. Now these 2 cards in particular are very interesting and very useful. Fire Fist Deer is a 2000 defense monster. It gains its effect at the end phase when it's destroyed by a card effect. It special summons a Fire Fist card from your deck. Now what this can lead to is a lot of good plays in which you'll use Chicken or other cards that gain effects when they are brought to the field, or useful in defensive ways such as Boar, in which case Boar, if it's destroyed by battle, or it can be used for synchros next turn because it's a level 4 tuner. Now the thing about Deer is you would use Onslaught of the Fire Kings, special summon the Deer, and then if you can't get a synchro that turn or an XYZ that turn, it's alright. You'll be able to special summon a Fire Fist monster at the end phase, which would more than likely be Chicken. Chicken will then get his effect because it was summoned via a Fire Fist monster, and then he'll bring a Fire Fist monster to your hand. This is all going to end in pluses because Chicken can bring Spirit to the hand. So Deer, the way Deer is used is very important. Boar, however, when a monster is destroyed by battle, he can special summon Chicken. Chicken will then gain his effect and the same thing happens, except this time he's a level 4 tuner and you want him in your grave as soon as possible. If you can get Boar to the field or the grave as soon as possible, you're looking at pluses. Why? Because you can use Wolfberg. Why is that important? Fire Fist Boar really has no requirements except that it must be used for a synchro of a fire type monster, fire attribute monster. Now does anyone know a particular fire type attribute monster that has 2800 attack and stops all monsters of level 5 or above being normal or special summoned if it destroys a monster by battle? Anyone at all? Yep, I'm talking about Crimson Blader. Crimson Blader with Wolfberg in that deck is beastly if it can get its hands on an elemental dragon. The beauty of this is, once you've got Boar in the grave, you can splash out a Wolfberg onto the field, use Boar, get a Crimson Blader, and your opponent is in deep shit. Now Deer has a very special effect. If you can get Deer and Boar to the field at the same time, you'll be able to use him for a level 8 synchro, which in this case it's Kieran. Kieran requires a fire tuner and a non-tuner Fire Fist monster. This is why it's very important that you use your cards wisely. In this case, it's very good to use Kirin, because Kirin will then use his effect to get a spell or trap card to the field, but also Deer, because he was used as a synchro summon, synchro material monster, he will gain his effect that he sets a fire formation spell card to your field. This in itself is very useful because you will actually get this effect if Onslaught is used. Onslaught of the Fire Kings only negates effects while they're on the field. If you're using it for a synchro summon, it's off the field, at which point it will gain its effect back. This is just like Junk Synchron and Tuning Wear. Tuning Wear will gain his effect to +1 if he's used for a synchro material monster, even though Junk Synchron has negated his effect on the field. Now the beauty of this particular variant is it is very adaptable. We're talking the most adaptable of all the variants. It can synchro summon, it can XYZ summon, it can pull a Crimson Blader out of your ass. It can do all of this, and it doesn't even know what it's doing itself until you do it. Until you say that you want to use Yoko to destroy a monster on the field, until you want to use Cardinal Commander to put cards back into your grave, until you use Avarice to get that commander back into your extra deck, and to use that loop all over again. The deck doesn't know, and the opponent doesn't know, and that's the special part about this. The opponent doesn't know what you're doing until you're doing it, and that is the beauty of it. Though he may know what you set on your field, and he may know it, he doesn't know what you'll be adding to your hand unless you use Tenki. He also doesn't know what you will draw into. He doesn't know what you're running until you show him what you're running, in which case it can be too late. If he wants to allow that Onslaught of the Fire Kings through, that could be a bore, that could be anything. That could be any of your Fire Fists. In which case you can still plus, and you can still win the match. Even if he thinks he can beat you, you can still win the match through his own mistakes because he can't predict your movements. Anyways guys, I think by now, by all the gameplays you've seen, each of them have their own merits as well as their own flaws. The Synchro variant is no different. It requires to be able to synchro in order to efficiently be used. Otherwise, it will find itself extremely lacking. However, consider one thing when you're going to use this variant. The Synchro variant is able to make Crimson Blader as well as Kirin, and you don't need to run them at 1. You can run them at 2 or 3, however many you feel you need. In which case, that's not minus 500 attack he's losing. That could be minus 1000 attack, and that would cripple any opponent. The only problem is once you have 2 Kirins on the field, you can only protect 1 with a Tenkin. And that's everything on the 4 Synchro Axis. Anyways guys, I hope you guys have learned something, and this all appeals to your playstyle. Each of these explanations is all about teaching you what you want to know about Fire Fists. If you want to run the 4 axis, the 3 axis, or the Synchro Axis, this is everything that you should know. I hope you guys have enjoyed this, and I hope you've learned something. Leave a comment, like and subscribe, and this is Seth punching out.